Welcome to ETV World. I'm Tabitha John. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the rebellious and thievish archetype of the terrorist TPLF, back from its inception up to where it is today. Do stay with us. The rebellious and thievish archetype of the present-day TPLF is not different from its initial identity. It was in 1975 in Deadabit that the designated terrorist Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, was established. Remembering the 1943 defeat, the second Woyanis vowed they would revenge the defeat and sustain their dream of building a strong sense of ethnic identity and a brave new world to their country with solid Marxist-Leninist aspirations. Unlike the 1943 defeat, the TPLF of 1975 had got several conducive factors to continue their revolt and guerrilla fight. Another pivotal cause of TPLF to success was its exploitation of the 1984-85 catastrophic famine. The TPLF had the most brutal heart to change this catastrophe into its advantage by gathering 200,000 famine victims from Tigray and forcing them to flee to Sudan to draw international attention. Here, TPLF succeeded with its mission of securing funds to its humanitarian branch known as Relief Society of Tigray, which was set up in 1978. Although the rebel group was listed as terrorist group by the Terrorism Research and Analysis Consortium on the Global Terrorist Database in 1976, based on atrocities it had committed since its inception, it got large amounts of international humanitarian aid in the name of famine victims and some development projects. As Dr. Aragawi Berhe, a former TPLF senior combatant, witnesses, the rebel group handling of the international community and of the famine and induced migration helped it gain more funds, which strengthened the guerrilla fighters' capability to become strong, well-armed frontal battlers. It was not only politicization of the famine that drew international attention, which brought TPLF big funds that allowed it purchase firearms, but also its brutality against its own ethnic groups, who were the first source of rations and other decisive inputs to the group's existence. It used to rob and steal Tigrayans themselves, government banks, hospitals, and schools. The TPLF brutality bombed a school in Hausan, Tigray, filmed it, and reported to the global community as if the government army bombed civilians. Robbery, politicization of the famine, alliance with the EPLF, disinformation to the global community about the situation in Tigray, and support from other governments like Sudan, Egypt, and the US gave TPLF rebels additional power to succeed with armed struggle and meaningfully challenge the Derg regime. In March 2010, the BBC investigation finds reported that millions of dollars in Western aid for victims of the Ethiopian famine of 1984-85 was siphoned off by rebels to buy weapons. This was in accord to the witness of former rebel leaders to the BBC that they posed as merchants in meetings with charity workers to get aid money. They used the cash to fund attempts to overthrow the government of the time. One rebel leader estimated $95 million from Western governments and charities was channeled into the rebel fight. In addition, the CIA, in a 1985 assessment entitled Ethiopia Political and Security Impact of the Drought, also alleged that aid money was being misused. It reported some funds that insurgent organizations are raising for relief operations as a result of increased world publicity are almost certainly being diverted for military purposes. On 28 May 1991, TPLF troops backed by long arms of the US seized control of Addis Ababa, the capital. They continued their character with embezzlements of public properties. As a living witness of the 50-year journey of the TPLF, Old Commander Aregawi Berhe says TPLF was still determined to build an all-pervading authoritarian political institution. It had, of course, succeeded in building a one-party system that ruled Ethiopia with an iron fist for nearly 3 decades. The worst being severe human rights abuses, which were recurrently reported by global human rights agencies, including Amnesty International, the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and other governments. TPLF's crimes on Ethiopians encompass serious embezzlement of the country's economy. The case of the state-owned metals and engineering corporation METEC is an outstanding instance in this regard. Billions of dollars were embezzled through corruption and illegally awarding contracts of multi-billion mega projects to its business institutions. After the TPLF lost federal power and confined to Mekelle, it continued the most brutal act by attacking the Northern Command and robbed the armaments. In November 2020, it heinously murdered over 6,000 soldiers in a single night. In 2021, it went on stealing the WFP and USAID warehouses in Tigray and later in Amhara and Afar regions. It also stole and destroyed banks, other financial institutions, hospitals, factories, hotels, schools, airports, and the like in the 3 regions. The present-day TPLF stealing has got seemingly international shape. None has so far condemned and took action against the TPLF acts of terror and theft. This might be reflected on its acts in Mekelle a day ago, as it stole 570,000 liters of fuel from a WFP depot. TPLF's robbery this time is totally against the demands of the international community for unfettered access to humanitarian aid. But the question is, why this much fuel in Tigray at a single spot? Why? As the world knows the rebellious and thievish archetype of the present-day TPLF. Are there still Western hands with the TPLF? You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram for more on such stories and to be part of the discussions. This is ETV World from the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation, the voice of diversity and renaissance.